Day 2 of training. In the morning, stealthily and with his kit bag strapped over his shoulder, Merama slid from his hut and out of the homestead towards the hill of training. It was very cold. Merama became wet from the dew on the shrubs and the tall elephant grass on the hills. The goal in his mind dwarfed the minor challenges he was experiencing on the way. His heart and soul were both fixed on the mission ahead of him. He reached the apex of the hill and laid the kit bag on a flat rock. He unpacked his weapons, ritually inspected and kissed all the weapons, speaking life to each one of them. The sky was beginning to turn gray with dawn, and in readiness Merama took out a gourd of milk that he had asked from their neighbor. As a grown man, Merama knew best what men do to the rising sun. He sipped a mouthful of the milk and spewed it to the rising sun, and spoke the words as passed on from generation to generation. O Irioba, Sun God, giver of all life, you have kept me and my mother safe. You have not taken away our lives. I thank you. He sipped a second time and spewed the milk towards the sun. Giver of life, keep us safe, keep the entire village safe. Bless my weapons, bless my mission. Saia. He poured the remaining milk onto the soil. My father and my ancestors, I welcome you to partake with me in this sacrifice. May you all go with me in the impending mission. Saia. Merama concluded. The Abakuria people had no place of worship. Prayers were made every day in the morning. Only men offered prayers and sacrifices, and this was done by spewing milk to the sun god. He put back his gourd into the kit bag and started his training. This time the training was vigorous and rigorous, more than the previous day. He went downhill and uphill 20 times, aimed many times more at the tree trunks, went through the thick thickets in the Nguku Omoro, allowing himself to be torn by thorns of all kinds, jumped over many rocks, falling over, stumbling over, and finally when he stopped to take a breath, he was drenched in sweat and blood flowed from the scratches on his body. His face was full of anger and hatred. Even as a little boy, his father had trained him well. During the many training sessions on how to fight boys, his father would tell him, anger and hatred keeps a man alive. Always fill your heart with the same when going out for war. Merama stared at the Ichinsere, Obokene, Ichin Soba Soba, the ripe mountain citrus and berry fruits, but dared not touch any. Training called for denying oneself of certain things. Train hard and fight easy, his father had always said. After a short break, Merama went downhill and carried a rock from the downhill to uphill. He went downhill again and did the same. He carried 8 big rocks uphill. By the time the sun was concluding its journey through the sky, Merama had put his weapons back into the kit bag and started descending the hill. His breathing was heavy, like that of an ox pulling on the plow. His teeth were clenched with his face bearing determination, only good for extermination. No threat, no man can stop me, thought Merama, as he now came to the full view of his homestead. Luckily, his mother was standing further away from the homestead, having a conversation with a young girl who had a crush on Merama. With the quick strides before his mother could see him, he walked into his hut and hid his kit bag under his rough bed. He wiped his face with water, tried to remove anything that could send him out to his mother, and even rehearsed a smile. After confirming that the girl had left, he walked out to meet his mother. On seeing Merama, she inquired about his absence since so early. Son, I woke up early to make you porridge with some sweet potatoes, and on coming to your hut, you are not there. You really got me scared. Fearing that his mother might start a conversation that could easily give him away, Merama walked up to his mother and, doing the unimaginable, according to the Abakuria tradition, He bent over and kissed his mother on the forehead. "Mama, I am a man now. Men will always be where men are and will always look for what men look for. I am well." She stared at her sweet son, wondering about the strange change that her son was exhibiting lately. Merama felt the inquisitive, plodding eyes of his mother over him, but dared not move his own eyes from his mother's eyes. His mother felt it better not to ask about what she was seeing in him. Later in the evening, his mother served him with food: ugali, chicken, and irisebo, that is pumpkin leaves. After supper, he rubbed medicinal leaves and ointment over his wounds and massaged his whole body as far as his hands could stretch. Then he stood up and stretched himself, turning his back to the fire that lit the hut. His shadow, so big and gigantic, filled the wall of the dingy hut. He smiled and spoke out loudly. "Tomorrow I will be as big." Merama crept into his rough bed, not bothering to cover himself with the hide. He lay on his back, his palms locking at the nape of his neck, staring at the cone-shaped grass-thatched roof of his hut. He immersed himself into the grand plan, rehearsing what and how he was going to conduct the operation on the following day. He is not sure if he fell asleep at all. At the first cockcrow, Merama woke up. Thank goodness it was full moon. He quietly pulled the vine door aside and stepped outside into the cattle enclosure. Holding his kit bag with both hands, he walked towards the entrance to the enclosure, parted 2 logs he had strategically positioned, and pushed the kit bag through. Then he squeezed himself through an opening that he had created the previous night as he closed the entrance to the enclosure. He pushed back the logs into place, lifting his kit bag and strapped it across his back from right side towards to the left side. On his left side dangled the Abakuria sword. On his right side a mace. He was ready for battle. He walked down towards the field where he had stood the other evening. He turned back and stared at the shadowy outline of the structure that he had called home all his life. And like many homesteads that had up to 12 huts, his homestead was composed of only 2 huts, one for his mother, one for himself, which his uncle had helped him put up when he had turned 20 seasons old. He stood there for a long moment, thinking of his mother and longing for support from his late father. Merama wept. Turning back on his course, Merama half walked and half ran. On reaching the river Misiwa, he turned to his right, walking along the riverbank so as to avoid meeting with any traveler. Despite knowing that the pythons lived near rivers within the swamp, this did not deter him from taking the risk. After all, he thought, pythons are not poisonous. He once attacked a python that had gotten hold of his lamb and freed the lamb. The forest was growing denser as he moved downstream, and after a long while, he heard voices within the riverbank. He quickly dropped his kit bag and fished out his sword, ready for self-defense. He bent down, taking cover behind some shrubs as he observed from some distance. With the aid of the moonlight, which had now diminished, he could see several people, 10 maybe, 15. The group composed of both men and women. They were all naked. Then he heard very clearly one of them. "I found a cloth belonging to Mariba. I came across it very easily. At the cowdung site was an old piece with cowrie shell. It's the one he has always worn. I tied it to a stick. He has started falling sick. As of yesterday, he was bedridden." Yet another said, "That's good. I already had picked soil from his footprint. I have the soil wrapped in this bark of banana that I'm tying around my neck." They all laughed with excitement. Then suddenly from behind them came 4 more people. They were riding on some animals. Gosh, this was a group of witches. Merama was terrified. The only people that Merama was scared of were witches. How he hoped that they wouldn't come his way. He was ready to wait for as long as it would take, even if it meant canceling his mission. Then suddenly he heard the witches say, "Now let's go, they must be ready." Suddenly the group turned back and took the road leading out of the river. They must have been waiting for their colleagues. Who were they going to kill? Which grave could they possibly be going to dig up? Wondered Merama. Give them enough time to disappear. Merama put back his sword and continued with his journey. Merama was now entering the foreign land of the Baihumbu clan territory. He knew the terrain well. He had been here several times before when he accompanied such parties tracking down animals stolen from the Bambareno clan. He knew where passes, cliffs, big trees, and even the best escape routes to cross the rivers with ease were. Heading straight to the narrow pass, Merama strategically positioned his weapons: a spear, a quiver of arrows, a bow, and a shield. He concealed them carefully so that a passerby would not notice them, but in such a manner that, in the event of a quick escape, he could access them and use them with precision. Then he moved for quite some distance and identified yet another location. There stood 3 withered volcanic rocks. The rocks looked like 3 women having a conversation, with one looking like a woman with a baby on her back. At the base of one, in a kind of a cave overlaying other smaller rocks, he made his second defense by again strategically hiding a quiver of arrows, a spear, a bow, and a shield, and a sword. He walked another long distance and came to a valley where the cows licked salt. Knowing the terrain, he went to a cave, and at the far end, where no one would dare reach for fear of snakes and spirits, Merama laid his last deployment of weapons. Then he carried with him, around his waist, a sword, a mace, a bow, and arrows. By the time the sky was beginning to turn gray, Merama had finished the first part of his mission. He had laid out defenses at different locations to counter any tracking by the enemy forces. He walked towards the village of Baihumbu clan. He headed to a nearby hill, found a section of dense forest, and singled out a gigantic omosere tree and stood by it. Before dawn, Merama climbed the omosere tree up to the highest point with V-shaped branches and sat there, leaning on the bigger branch. The rays of the sun were beginning to form, and being at the top of the tree, he was the first person to witness the sun god rise. Having carried a gourd of milk on this significant occasion, Merama had all reasons to seek favors from the giver and protector of life, the sun god. He sipped the milk and spewed it to the rising sun god, blessing his mother and asking victory and life in the impending difficult task ahead. He sipped again and concluded the worship by spewing again to the sun god, maker and giver of life. Soon the village was fully awake, with the villagers walking by and going about their daily activities. Women carried earthen clay water pots and big gourds, big enough to carry a large volume of water. Small girls carried smaller gourds. Boys and young men, each armed with abakuria swords and maces, could be seen gathering building materials. Some were cutting reeds and creeping plants to make doors and beds. Some were cutting sisal leaves to make binding materials for the roof and the walls of huts, and some could be seen cutting grass for roofing. When the sun reached a man's waist, animals started streaming by. The dark green and dense leafy omosere tree gave perfect camouflage and concealment. Merama could see every detail below him and beyond. He saw some of the healthiest and biggest animals that he had ever seen, with some bulls being as big as buffaloes. Their humps bounced beautifully up and down with every step the beautiful animals made. Wow! It was a beautiful catwalk for the fatty animals. The cows had very big udders, an indication that they produced a lot of milk. Behind the herd of animals were two young men, about Merama's age. They were armed, each with an Abakuria sword and a mace. The bells dangling from the animals' necks produced beautiful melody, typical to a wealthy village. The sun was heading west, having passed a month's head, when Merama heard a voice not far from where he was concealed. He parted the leaves to have a glimpse of the people below. There were 4 old men. 2 were cutting twigs for brushing their teeth. The other 2 stood waiting. They all held a whisk, wore hats made of palm leaves with obogoro or snuff dangling from their necks. Each of them had a traditional beer drinking straw which they used to suck beer from a pot. They were headed for a drinking ceremony, Merama thought. During ceremonies, Ibuusa, traditional sorghum beer, is brewed and put into a pot. This pot is buried inside a hole in the middle of the hut. As many as 50 old men or men of same age sat all around it, dipping their long straws into the pot and sucking out the beer, leaving behind the amachicha or sludge. One of the old men spoke. "Fellow elders, last night I was shown an impending raid from the Bambareno clan. Today in the morning, as I made prayers to the sun god, I was again shown that something bad is going to happen." Merama thought, "Oh no, they have been warned by their ancestors of my impending assault." A second elder commented, "Me too, I had a warning." Merama thought, "Oh no, these old men are all Abasubere, revered community seers with powers to influence nature. They must have been warned by their ancestors of my impending assault." A second elder commented, "As I was walking towards Omogaka Nyamora's homestead, 7 different cats crossed my path. One of them even attempted to scare me away. I used my whisk to scare it away instead. I quickly got out my warthog oil and applied it over my face, feet and palms to ward off any bad spirits. Yes, it's possible there could be something bad coming. We must put our brave warriors on high alert. We have to sound the emergency horn at the earliest opportunity." This last statement sent a cold shiver down Merama's spine. In all the 24 clans of the Abakuria tribe, these elders, selected through Isubo ceremony, are the final authority. Nobody can pass on their right-hand side. They determine when to plant, when to start circumcision season, when to go to war, and when not to go to war. If in a wedding ceremony they declare that a bull should not be eaten for some reason, like it produced a sound during slaughter, then the whole bull would be buried. None of it would be eaten, and another bull had to be brought for proper slaughter. Merama called on his father. Though he vaguely remembered him, he called on the sun god, snake god, and frog god. Despite the revelation he had heard from the seers, there is no retreat, no surrender. Merama thought to himself. He was here for his mother and for himself. He watched the clan seers walk past where he was, and he followed them with his eyes until he could see them no more. One thing prevented him from coming down the tree. His pronunciation would have sold him out. Though belonging to the same tribe, the clans had differences in how they pronounced certain words. Some words were totally different. For instance, one clan would call pepper as ikinyakare, while another would call it ikinyavare. From his perch, as evening approached, Merama saw a large herd of cattle being driven towards the river for the last drink of the day. The large herd stirred dust up the sky. The herd was being driven by a girl, along with the 4 younger boys, probably her siblings. Scanning the entire vicinity and seeing no one in sight, Merama hurriedly came down from the tree and walked to where he had seen some young men slashing grass and laying it in heaps. He quickly got himself a vine string and tied a big bundle of grass, but not too big to weigh him down, just big enough to conceal himself from any passers-by. By the time the girl with a gourd of water on her head and her siblings were coming back, Merama was ready with his bundle of grass. He heaved the bundle of grass onto his right shoulder and walked on the left side of the trail, following the herd. The drivers of the herd did not notice anything fishy. It was a long trek to the village, and Merama wished he had made the grass bundle lighter. Viewer, don't miss on the next 4th episode, which will be full of suspense, drama, and action. Thank you for watching.